5 years after releasing his pet project, a modern retelling of the 1982 classic Indonesian horror film Satan Slaves, director Joko Anwar returned to create a follow-up of an epic proportion. This movie was a monster in Indonesian cinema, where horror movies are released by the dozens per year, but this one, alongside Ivana, was one of the most anticipated. So what is the end result? Is it as creepy and scary as you've heard? Hi, I'm the Arty Dance from We Love Asian Horror at Asian Film Fans, and together we're going to take a look at why this movie should be at the top of your horror movie watch list. Rini and her family have moved into an apartment complex built on a floodplain, located near the site of an old cemetery. Alongside her two brothers and father, they're crammed into a one-bedroom apartment in a complex full of low-income and strange occupants. On the eve of her leaving for Jakarta to take up a scholarship to improve her career, a massive storm hits the complex, flooding the lower floor and trapping a group of residents, including Rini and her family. But this is more than just an average storm and flooding event. The evening also coincides with the 29-year mark of a supernatural event involving the cult that has links to Rini's mother. The survivors experience a barrage of ghostly events, including the reanimating of corpses involved in a horrible incident at the complex earlier in the day, until they uncover the sinister truth behind the building and its long-term inhabitants. As someone who really enjoys horror movies and is always looking for something new to creep me out, Satan Slaves 2 certainly stepped up to the plate. This movie oozes atmosphere, but you'd expect nothing less from Joko Anwar. Of his films that I've seen, that being The Forbidden Door and Impetigore, it's his world building that is definitely his strength. Most of the movie is dark, almost the opposite of Impetigore that, while it had lots of night scenes, also had lots of spooky daytime scenes too. With the movie setting being in the mid-80s, the reliance and emphasis on technology has been removed. No mobile phones, no internet. In its place is an unstable electricity supply, oil lanterns, and candles. This also means that unlike a lot of cheaper horror movies that seem to fill dark scenes with an unseen light source poorly emulating the moon, this movie is dark. The flashes of lightning provide sporadic bursts of visibility, and Anwar has used this to great effect during scenes of where the shroud ghosts move. It might be a standard and well-used effect, but with the overall atmosphere of the film, it's bloody creepy. There is a very mild sinister feeling in the movie too, such as the radio broadcasts and the poltergeist-like scene with the snow on the TV after the program broadcast ends. Simple, yet very creepy. And this is where the scares of the movie are coming from. It's that dread, and Anwar has hit that out of the park. But then it wouldn't be an Indonesian horror movie without some gore. And that's where that elevator scene comes in. A fantastic scene that's used to develop a few characters, such as Wisnu the young boy and Rini's father. The end result of that scene is a beautiful gore splash on a terrified young girl who watches her three best friends being squashed by a 1-ton metallic cube. The lead up to this moment just solidifies what Anwar was aiming to achieve with this film. We are shown at several points throughout the beginning of the film that the elevator in the building is unreliable. Thus, when it plays up, no one thinks anything of it. The young girls remember the coins being spilt at the bottom of the shaft and immediately retrieve what they can, probably hoping to buy snacks or toys with the money. The sheer poverty of the inhabitants of the building clouds their judgment. They risk their lives for the money to the point where they are so consumed by collecting coins, they ignore the pleas of their friend to get out to safety. The resulting drop killing all but one of the elevator passengers too, Rini's father, and later on in the movie, we find out why he was spared. Another thing that really stands out is the acting. It's not just the adults either. This film has a large child and teenage cast too, and at no stage does their acting break the immersion of the film. If anything, just enhances it. Especially the character of Wisnu, the brave young boy that looks after his mother, yet has an acute level of maturity about him when he realizes he's now an orphan. All of this is sold by the solid acting of youngster Muzaki Ramdan. The three teenage boys are also excellent, with a genuine feeling amongst them that they've been friends for a long time. The banter and camaraderie feel real, and when they get terrified, we as the audience feel that as well. All the small details of the film work together. The sound design capture the atmosphere perfectly. The hustle and bustle of a busy apartment complex is then juxtaposed by an eerie silence when the storm hits. Background noise is used to provide clues, and thankfully Anwar has resisted the urge to add jump scares. the lowest common denominator of the genre has been pushed aside by a genuinely talented filmmaker with an unmistakable eye for horror. But that's also Anwar's downfall in this film. His attention to detail might be a little too attentive, and thus his expectation of his audience is high. One of the issues I had with previous Anwar films like The Forbidden Door and Impetigore were the endings. Great films, but their endings were left far too much up to the viewer to interpret the details. Now usually I'm okay with that when it comes to the finer details. Sometimes it's fun to build a world around what the directors created, and it kinda worked for me with The Forbidden Door, but it didn't work with me for Impetigore, and it's not working for me here. The ending is rather insane. We get zombies, pochongs, and the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and honestly, I really had no idea how all of this fits together. While I expected some grand ending that tied everything up, I was a little confused and ended up just rolling with what I witnessed, hoping that Rini might explain it to me. She didn't, so I feel a little let down by the ending, but that's just a me thing, and your experience will vary. However, the movie then needed to ensure that I was left with utter confusion by introducing that couple right at the end. And then as if to top it off, the question they ask of themselves just left me thinking, was any of this even real? My guess is Anwar will make a part 3 of the film, but I don't expect him to provide any answers. I'm in the fortunate situation of having some Indonesian friends who are able to provide me with some of the finer details of Indonesian films that I usually miss. They explained more about KKN to me that made it make more sense, but I haven't consulted them yet about this film, so my opinion of the ending may change in due time. But another admission here, I haven't seen the original nor Anwar's 2017 remake, so I admit I am very clearly missing some details. There is some backstory to provide some detail, but be warned, if you're a first timer like me, there will be some confusion. And another bit that left me with some confusion was the reporter character. It seemed that he should have had a bigger role in the film, but he is reintroduced way too late in the story to make any difference to the characters. He added nothing to the overall ending of the film other than to provide some context, which admittedly was needed, but I felt he could have had a far better role in the film and would have made a far more interesting character had he been trapped in the complex with everyone else. But regardless of those points, this is still such a great film. This is Indonesian horror at its absolute finest. They make a lot of rubbish films, but when they make a hit, it's a success. Considering how poor J-horror has been for a little while, it's a surprise that Indonesian horror hasn't taken off more. There's a cultural barrier to their films, and perhaps a Western audience might not appreciate that Islam is the dominant religion. Using my patent pending ghost rating, which stands for great horror or stupid trash, this movie scores a very solid 4 ghosts. Creepy and atmospheric. It's a film that doesn't rely on jump scares or too much gore to craft a story that will keep you enthralled for the entire run time. Personally, I can't wait to see what Joko Anwar has lined up for his next film, because he has solidified himself as a horror movie director that knows exactly what he's doing and knows exactly how to terrify his audience without resorting to clown costumes and excessive gore. If you've seen this, what did you think of it? Thank you for watching this review. Please press the like button if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more Asian horror movie trailers, reviews and news.